Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, at least 4 people are shot dead by security forces in Ethiopia's eastern Somali region. It comes after a weekend of unrest around Jigjiga, looting and violence the government accuses regional officials of encouraging. Also, 5 police are killed in fresh violence in western Cameroon. Most of the deaths are blamed on English-speaking separatists amidst the country's ongoing anglophone crisis. And regreening the Sahel. It's an ambitious project started by the African Union 10 years ago. And today, Senegal's wall of trees number in at over 11 million. It's just one of 27 countries taking on the challenge. We take a closer look. But first, the governor of Ethiopia's eastern Somali region has reportedly left office after a weekend of violent clashes in which at least 10 people were killed. At least 4 people were fatally shot by security forces around Jigjiga on Monday during protests over the earlier looting of shops owned by ethnic minorities. Over the last few days, thousands of people have been hiding out in Orthodox churches, and at least 2 such buildings have been burned. The unrest follows the deployment of troops to the Somali region last Friday. It's seen sporadic violence for decades, and there are concerns that the latest tensions have been stoked by regional officials at odds with central authorities. Now, Tom Gardner joins us with more. Tom, what started the clashes? Why were the troops sent in? Tell us a bit more about what's been happening, the context to all of this.
Hi. Yeah, so even by Ethiopian standards, this has been a particularly opaque conflict. Reports have been trickling out of the region since Saturday morning when the first gunshots appeared to have been fired. But there's been no official statements of any significance from the government, and internet in the region has been cut. What we can say with some certainty is that on Saturday, the federal military started engaging in open conflict with regional security forces in Jigjiga, the capital of Somali region, and that the Somali regional governor appeared to be in the standoff with the authorities in Addis Ababa, which he seems to have lost now. This military showdown seems to have escalated into broader ethnic clashes, with those of non-Somali ethnic origin in the city being targeted. We've heard some pretty gruesome reports of people being burnt alive and homes and shops being looted. It seems to then spread to neighboring cities with more rounds of ethnically motivated violence. It's not yet clear if it's come to an end, though more federal troops have been sent in.
So has the relationship between Addis Ababa and regional authorities around Jigjiga changed at all since Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's appointment? We've been hearing that there's some concerns that the regional authorities may actually actively be encouraging the unrest.
Well, yes. I mean, this is Abiy's biggest challenge yet, frankly. We're talking about a regional government which is now in open, violent confrontation with the central government in Addis. It's important to realize, though, that the Somali region is pretty unique in Ethiopia. It's the second largest region. It has a long history of instability and secessionism. Ethiopian leaders in Addis have always sought to keep it under tight control, but in recent years the tactic had been to give the regional governor free rein, basically, in repression and human rights abuses, essentially as the price of stability. This was no longer sustainable. Abdi Ile was becoming a real liability. The region was becoming more and more unstable. He and Abiy had a bad personal relationship as well. He needed to go from Abiy's perspective, but the decision to force him out violently in this way will be controversial constitutionally and arguably sets quite a dangerous precedent.
Thanks very much. Tom Gardner there for us in Ethiopia. Now, Bouye, the capital of one of the regions at the heart of Cameroon's anglophone crisis, was a ghost town on Monday as residents stayed at home in protest over a recent flare-up of unrest linked to the anglophone crisis. At least 5 police officers were killed over the weekend in violence connected to English-speaking separatists' demands for their own state. Indira Ateng tells us more.
Assistant Commissioner Ekanjume Simon was shot and killed at his home in the southwest region of Cameroon late Saturday. It is not clear if the armed men who killed him were separatist fighters, but he is the second security officer to be killed in Mutengene in the past few weeks. A gendarme officer was a few days ago killed along the Mutengene-Limbe stretch of road and his weapons taken from him. In a related development, it is alleged that at least 3 gendarmerie officers were assassinated over the weekend in Esu in the northwest region of the country after a gendarmerie brigade was set on fire. Elsewhere in the northwest region of the country, the divisional officer for the Menchum Valley, Lokombe Derrick, was kidnapped by armed men who pulled him out of his vehicle at about 4 p.m. Saturday and took him to an unknown destination. His vehicle was later found along the road on fire. It should be noted that this is the latest administrative officer to be taken by pro-separatist fighters in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon since the anglophone crisis started in October 2016. Meantime, a fierce gun battle erupted in Bojongo in the southwest region of the country over the weekend between government troops and separatist fighters. Calm has finally returned to the locality, but several people were arrested.
Dira Ateng there for us. Now, the 2 men at the heart of South Sudan's 4-year-long civil war have signed another peace deal. President Salva Kiir and his longtime rival and former number 2, Riek Machar, signed a power-sharing agreement on Sunday. But it's the latest of several deals that have quickly failed in the past and failed to stop violence in which tens of thousands have been killed.
A much-awaited celebration of peace in South Sudan. This moments after the country's president Salva Kiir and the rebel leader Riek Machar signed a power-sharing agreement. A transitional government is expected to be formed in the coming months, keeping Kiir as president and giving Machar the role of first vice president. Both parties hope the deal can bring an end to the conflict which has torn the country apart since its independence.
That the agreement we have just signed today must mark the end of conflict and war in our country.
Riek Machar insisted on the need to implement the deal.
That the devil sometimes is embedded in the implementation. If there is no political will, even if we sign beautiful agreements and they are not implemented, we would have done nothing.
The president's party will control 20 of the 35 cabinet positions, and the remaining seats will be split between the opposition. But smaller rebel leaders say the deal does not adequately distribute power on a local level and focuses only on how the government will function in the capital. Salva Kiir and Riek Machar governed together twice before. Both times the country erupted in chaos. Many now suspect the new agreement will have the same fate. South Sudan has been caught in a bloody civil war for the past 5 years. The government and rebel parties have denied access to foreign NGOs, making it impossible to provide an official death toll for the conflict. Aid groups estimate that between 50,000 and 300,000 people have been killed since 2013.
Now, DR Congo is planning on starting a new round of Ebola vaccinations this week. Authorities are responding to a new outbreak of the virus in the east of the country that medics believe has killed at least 33 people. The flare-up in North Kivu comes a week after the government celebrated the end of an outbreak in northwestern Equateur province, in which at least 33 people were also killed. Health officials say that teams are already on the ground trying to track down those whose confirmed cases came into contact with. Senegal started planting a wall of trees in the Sahel 10 years ago as part of efforts by Sahel countries to slow down and reverse the effects of deforestation. So far, over 11 million trees have been planted. Take a closer look.
In northern Senegal, decades of intensive farming, overgrazing and global warming mean the desert is expanding. The problem is the same across the Sahel region, the semi-arid belt that lies below the Sahara and stretches from Senegal to Eritrea. Senegal has planted over 11 million trees these last 10 years to try and reverse the effects of desertification. The project is called the Great Green Wall.
Today, planting trees in this zone is not easy because we get less than 250 to 300 milliliters of rain per year. So with that amount of annual rainfall, it has been difficult.
In the local school, students learn about the importance of looking after trees and crops.
We planted maize, tomatoes and chili peppers.
For several years, the school was closed, but thanks to the Great Green Wall project, it has now reopened.
People would travel far to find land for their animals to graze. But now with the Great Green Wall, we carry out awareness activities and residents keep their children in school.
According to the United Nations, 2/3 of Africa's arable land could be lost by 2025 because of growing desertification.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for joining us. Do so again if you can. Take care.
You might watch France 24 in English, but don't forget, France 24 is also broadcast in French, Arabic, and Spanish.
Muy buenas tardes, bienvenidos a las noticias de France 24.
Available on cable and satellite systems and online media in France and around the world.